Mom and for keeping her around these 60 years. And we pray that you have many, many more years, Father, that she would be here. Bless us, Father, Lord, that we could enjoy each other as a family. And we ask you to bless us evening, that you may be glorified. Thank you for the food in Jesus' name. Oh, come on, Dylan. You read that book, and now you want to eat spinach spaghetti?
Yeah, let's see, I've been bad.
Yeah, it's like, where do you go?
I got to Brazil, got to Manaus, and the restaurant had churrasco. And I said, I'm going to pass on this. No.
So is that camera moving around, or is it just...
No, it's just sitting still. In fact, we can stop it here and sound now again. I'll just pause it.
You can either press the button on the back or the little red button.
How do you know that?
I don't know. I don't think either one of them wants to do anything.
What are we talking about here?
Well, okay, I think while everybody's here, I got this good letter from John and Chrissy yesterday, what John writes at this time. Some of it is more interesting than other parts, but we've got February 24th, so he finishes in March. We just received your letter, Mother, sent with first news of Galen's return. Just yesterday, Danny sent our letter in the long envelope. It's pouring cats and dogs right now. He did so last night also while I was out to Valle Verde. Chrissy said there were puddles all over the house because of the strong wind that may drive were these torrential tropical rains. It's hot and muggy for 2 days or so, and then comes this huge downpour which only lasts 20 minutes, but with enough water to make up for 10 rainstorms I've seen anywhere else. The trip out to Valle Verde through the wet countryside was fun. 17 kilometers in an hour and a half by bike. That's how long it took me. Coming back on, I was amazed at the beehives. After 2 months of rainy season with no supplemental feeding, plus the technical error of leaving on the honey boxes, which increases the space they need to heat at night, the hives are better off than my other hives at Orlando's, which have received feeding. Where's Orlando? Is that in Colmena?
Yes, about 2 miles.
I observed the hives with lots of forest yet. The farm on the other side of the river has 3,000 acres and most undeveloped. I'll need to identify which trees flower at this time. It sure was a surprise and encouraging since the hives at Orlando did so poorly during the rainy season. This weekend, Glenn's will be here for services in the church, and then I regretted not having let them know, at least know, that we were interested in buying land within a year. Their land would certainly have been nice were we to sell it in Lagasema. It's hard to hold off for a year or two to buy since prices keep going up as the region is developing so fast. Now that the paved road in the last 2 years, but I suppose it is best since we are still so undecided. We do feel more at ease about another 3 years in Brazil, even if that were to be all. You mentioned wanting more news about Dale Shulman's visit. We had him personally going over some personality tests and talking about decision-making dynamics. When we shared our hopes about the campground option and being able to experience rural life, he was very supportive and had enough rent money to build a house. He also shared that OMA positions, and I learned that you can work your way gradually through such a position with MDM guaranteeing support while you begin providing some of your own income. I don't understand exactly how that works. Okay, it's been a month or more since we have had no more correspondence with MDM or IMA. I'm assuming that IMA forwarded the region's invitation to us, but don't really know that. How do you feel about another 3 years in Brazil for us? It would certainly be the time we need to get some rural experience and be more certain about the OMA possibility. Chrissy feels I need this experience. I suppose I could say the same about her! Exclamation mark. We feel also that the kids would still be a good age for returning at that point were that to become apparent. Danny would be just ready to start junior high about the age when we went to Brazil. We'd like to hear from Galen again with comments concerning his visit here before it fades away with all the stateside activities. Arrive home at 4, guess who wrote him all this? Arrive home at 4, play soccer, tournament at 5, etc. Galen. Roger and Cass's interest to go to Brazil would certainly fit into some of Campinas' needs. Maybe something could be worked out with MBA. IEMA is also interested in passing their finance books to computer. TAIL could also use some instruction for assembly work since Gary Lowen was big on it. Sometimes it seems our operation is so small it doesn't benefit from the computer, but I may be wrong. I do know that IEMA is notorious for lack of record keeping. It's in their books. Elaine Kaufman dreams of computerizing things before she leaves the treasurer position. It would probably be easier to keep tabs and require accountability if things were on a computer. We enjoyed your visit, Dick. Don't pop in your butt. You are a very sensitive and respectful of other persons. I hadn't observed that. I heard times it amazes and discourages me to see how churches can make such a mess of such a good thing, the gospel. I can always get renewed by reading the Bible again. There have been few places where I have felt good about how it was being lived out. I suppose you would say the same about churches in the States. For now, I need to start closing down and help Chrissy out in the house. It seems these last days that I have been away from home all day. I just to finish responding to your letter, Mother. Habitat is certainly worth getting involved with. I would recommend it to Merlin and Miller. There was an article about Miller Fuller in a Times magazine I read just recently, the one with Donald Trump on the cover. It amazed me since when I saw the cover, I was saying to myself, all these American magazines do is focus on millionaires and getting rid of habitat. Well, out to the kitchen now. It seems every time we have a rainstorm, the electricity goes off sometime for the whole night. At first we were not well prepared for this, but now more so. Still, it irritates Chrissy to no end. Right now, she's standing in the dark kitchen and doesn't know where to start. That'd be awful. It came in through the tile. March 1st. Now this is March 1st. My house, but not that I haven't had enough interruptions. Chrissy is out visiting and shopping, so I have the kids to keep an eye on. Now look what the guy did. Danny and his friend were painting the water towers for their fazenda that they were setting up in his friend's backyard. Water towers in the fazenda.
What was in that?
A farm?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oil paint can get on everything while it's still wet, which they had to learn the hard way. The other ones are out in front having a church service with two neighbor friends singing hymns and sitting in the cab of the Pula that Gaspar had apparently abandoned in our garage. We saw pictures of that when you brought here, that Pula out there. Yesterday evening, when the electricity left us, as it often does, Chris and I were busy doing our thing, when suddenly we are called to the bedroom where Benji had put a candle in the clothes closet, starting a minor fire, which ruined several pairs of pants and don't do it again. Benji is such fun and will be free soon.
He's so cute.
Careful, watch out for
Right?
the camera.
I just don't know him yet. He'll be 3 soon, which we told him about today. He spent the morning singing Parabéns. He has a whole morning to himself now and does pretty good playing by himself. It looks now like I may catch a ride with Glenn when they go south end of April to MIV conference and go as far as going in so that Benji can have his hydrocell operation before we end our MCC term. Yeah, what is a hydrocell? She thought it was something. Carol thought it was something.
He's on his job at the school.
Hey, get up here!
The school. Some John's neighbors are saying his testicles.
It's right.
Yeah, they're like one's about this big.
I thought it was somebody a neighbor, but I guess it was.
No, I mean the school. Yeah, I think it has to do with the.
Well, I think we'll cut the tape here. Benji doesn't have to remember everything.
God, we thank you, God, for our grandmother. We thank you, God. Amen. Oh, that's good. That's good. That is so sweet.
Can I hear it again?
We thank you, God, for our grandmother. We thank you, God. Let's do that again.
You have a hug? You want a hug? Okay.
Okay, let's go get start with the clues.
Do you have a hug too?
Yes, you got it.
Okay.
With the clues?
Here we go.
Oh, dear.
This.
Follow the clues for Is there a gift at the end? There is.
Yay.
For a start on your way, check where the piano plays. Which is it underneath? This comes out. Does it come out? Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Does it say cut?
This says, if you found this clear, not too far from here, is the next note where the water is pure. Behind it. Oh, okay.
She has to find all the notes before she has to pop the present.
Oh boy.
Watch this tape. Yank the tape.
Great. Your hunt is underway. Next clue is on all the other way, the mysterious place of 3 doors.
Okay.
Is underneath here? Is it here?
Running her
Not too obvious, is
You
it?
guys said
I see it. I see it. Okay, well, maybe this place isn't so mysterious. Your next clue is to be found by rising to great heights in a room fit for a king. Your next clue is with Daniel's lion in the den.
You're in too far. Too high.
Can you help me? Can you help me find
It's right in front of your face.
Oh, here it is. Okay, I'll read it out here. I know he found 2 stories above the ground where bunnies have a picnic.
Aha, it's upstairs somewhere.
Where bunnies are having a picnic.
Yeah, where bunnies have a picnic. Did we saw them?
Now for the last clue. In the room where we dined, under the 2 dolls in the doors, a treasure awaits you.
Treasure, but we're not going to tell you.
You know the treasure?
Yes,
Oh, in the door. Here.
Hey, what? She's scared to open it.
Oh, you open it. I don't want anything to jump out at me.
Help her find it. She doesn't know what you're looking for.
I don't even know what I'm looking for. Is it?
Turn the wrong way.
Happy birthday
What was the last clue?
from your treasures. Aww. You sweet little people. Now.
You're gonna jiggle too?
Oh. Look at that. From your
Go ahead,
treasures.
jiggle.
Now the next thing we're gonna do is
Go ahead and
sit at
jiggle
the
for me.
table. We're gonna see that being 60,
Polly.
if you can still play this. Like you used to. So let's get up.
I'll have to keep these. This is cute. I didn't know you were a poet.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
I guess show up in different ways in different places.
exactly.
There's black.
Hey, did you get the
Right, you
happy
guys
birthday
can
sign
do
here?
They're all, and all the green ones are just,
From the youngest.
Keisha, what did this do?
Now can I ask the case, can
No, you gotta hang on here, but you gotta hang on loosely. You gotta hang on loose. That's not the good way.
Let me do it on the other
You're
side.
next, you're next.
Now can I do it?
Whoa!
Got 2 hurt already.
Oh, they're twisting my finger though. They're twisting my...
I'll play.
Is this 8889. A flurry of activity over in Frisbee's corner. Relatively frivolous, but nonetheless a flurry.
Now, I got these big numbers here.
You got big numbers.
Where's the yellow one?
Buried still.
Goodness. I can't stop now. Just lay it down. I'll stick it pretty soon then, but I can't.
I'll get it. Here. Oh my, how am I gonna?
Charlie, you can get Casey, strike your teeth, and wait till everybody else.
Boy, that man's got.
Yeah.
Oh.
You see those balloons?
And?
Look at the balloons. A balloon. Yeah. Balloon. Yeah.
The boss came off. We're in trouble now, guys.
Yeah? Well, you must be wanting to use it.
Well, you got me on that one.
That's too heavy, right? I like it. Hey, get it.
Boy.
Oh, you can't play it.
Lift
That's
off.
not what I needed. I didn't need that either.
This is bubble gum, I know that. Bubble gum.
No worries.
Miss?
Quietly, he says.
Hi, lady.
Should we let him in?
Come on in. Were you over at my house? How did you know I was here? Huh? Did you do it? Did you not? See, these days, it's just been one thing after another, and I don't trust my children anymore. They're just
Playing tricks?
playing tricks on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did this all come from? Oh, she wants us. You knew you were coming.
Here's a card for you.
Oh,
Is your birthday, don't you? I thought you had a birthday.
yeah, I thought so too.
You did
Well, take your coats off.
Oh, you mean you can say?
have a card for you from Elsie Sutter.
I'll bring it, Grandma.
Oh, but what?
Can't be there, so.
Elsie Sutter, well, I got one
Bring
from
the
her
chairs
already.
over.
I look natural, so she wouldn't think anything.
Oh.
Because Elsie sends everybody a card.
Yeah, everybody cards. So now this is another one. My, oh, my.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
it warms it up. Yeah, then you take your coat.
There's a lady up here, I didn't see her ran.
Oh, got it.
Hey, hi there. Hello, Paul.
Joyce gave it to me just
Chair?
I wasn't looking for company.
Joyce, not so.
I wasn't looking for
I want to
company.
say on the birthday card.
Now, why didn't you tell me today? You're some lady not telling me this. Here, I talked to you.
why I should tell you.
You weren't informed to do that. Oh, this one too? Oh, my.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, good. Last people probably
Yeah.
So, I'm surprised. I think she's continuously surprised with all these people. There's just 3 days.
Somebody I don't know.
Just family. Hi, Martha.
Okay, it's a double park.
Yeah, but nobody parked in there. They just all along the line.
Coming back on.
It's a forest fire.
The smoke detector's gonna go off.
These are girls from work. These retail people, the moms. You woman.
Remember the other day when they called?
Sure, I have told you. Never seen mine. Thanks a lot. I'll just put it up here with my things. Old Kevin's right there.
Some refreshments. We cut the cake now that we got all those candles off of it out of the way.
All of this candles, yeah.
We're down there.
Come on, you people are standing. Tail, people are standing. Come on out and get some cake. They want you to come.
Carol.
They told me at supper time we don't have any. I almost feel like people didn't come. I got Asian here. That's Asian. And there is that Cory. They're all mixed up. This Cory.
So if you open up the one, you can think about your first year and your second year.
I'll do that at home.
You know somebody else will? Not all of them are wrapped by any
Not all wrapped.
But on my thing, looking through this and figuring out what all's here. Okay?
I don't know. You want me to have a heart attack or something?
No. Just have fun.
Oh, I can't believe it.
He really cooled off a lot.
There's a bunch of us who kind of went together and found 60 items for you. We're not going to claim anything.
That sounds just like you. Oh. That is a good idea. Yeah. Kevin, get away from here. Toilet paper. Oh. Well, I'm telling you that the grandchildren will be glad to help me open it.
I do that too.
Oh, really?
Just the next farm could come and help. Well, all morning, Eliza was running back and forth between the barn and the house and hanging up laundry and all the kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, they saw the sheep there hanging on the line.
They were chasing hogs.
Chasing hogs.
Grandma was helping too.
And Grandpa was helping too. But Grandma Hostetler said, well, it can't be possible. You know, only 2 hours ago, Eliza was out running around. How in the world could it be time already? But sure enough, Miriam was on the way. So Miriam was born east of Goshen here, on a farm. It was right on 13, right? Or right on 4. Right on 4 there, close to the Y of 13. And lived there how long in that farm?
18 years.
18 years. The second child of Elam and Eliza, Laban, was born in 1927, and then they came 2 years apart for forever after. 6. What?
For 6 times, it was 2 years. Every 2 years.
Every 2 years, 6 times. Yeah, it was 27, 29, 31, 33. So Miriam was the first daughter. Laban was described as a real quiet child, but Miriam cried a lot. So I don't know what that says. She made her presence noticed, I guess, in the house.
You say that makes a good singer.
That makes a good singer? Is that it? Okay.
She was practicing.
So we wanted you to tell us a little bit about growing up years. You know, the whole thing of the Bible verses on the blackboards and the singing and the little things you did together. I guess Pennsylvania Dutch was your first language until you went to grade school when you were 5 years old. But why don't you tell us just a little bit of the early growing up years and the first memories you have, I guess, of growing up?
Well, my first memories, well, like you were saying something about the Bible verses, my father liked to sing a lot, so he always had this blackboard in the living room, and he always had this song.
The people over here can't.
Everybody likes Saturday before they go, so they have some other record that Miriam can look back on too.
Thanks, Bill. Well, my growing up years on the farm, and like Galen said, every 2 years there was a little one, and I was the oldest girl, so there was a lot of work on this farm, and I guess I learned to work from when I was quite small. And I think I had a happy childhood, very happy childhood. And like I said, my father liked singing a lot, so he had us memorize these songs. I remember when we were, well, I guess they told us later how old I was, but when we were 4 and 5 years old, he'd make us sing for people, and I didn't like that. But he had taught us these songs, so he wanted us to come around and sing these songs. But we lived on that farm until, like he said, until I was 18 years old, and just did ordinary things you do on a farm, I guess. Worked and had our garden and went to school and did the daily things. And then when I was 18, my parents moved to my grandmother died. My grandmother Hostetler on the other farm, the one that helped bring me into the world. And then she died, and so my grandfather didn't want to move from the farm. So my family moved to the other farm. So that was the first time I moved in 18 years then. And so I lived there for, well, until I left home.
Can you remember anything from school? I know you quit the day you turned 16. That's not a good example for the rest of us.
I wouldn't want you to either. Yeah, I went to Clinton Community School for 8 years, and then to Millersburg, 1 year of high school in Millersburg. Then they only had 8 years at. Good experience in school. I liked. Children don't believe it, but I liked sports, and I loved to play basketball and baseball. Things. And I had a good experience in school. I enjoyed school. Yeah.
So then, after you were out of school, what did you do between the time you were 16 on until you got married?
Well, after I was 16, maybe 17, 18, I started helping people in homes, like when a new baby was born, or when people help clean houses. We had some neighbors around that needed help, so that's basically what I did. Then I worked at Churn and Ladder. Nobody remembers Churn and Ladder, and the younger ones don't. Worked at Churn and Ladder for a little bit. I worked at the American Laundry for maybe a year.
What did you do at these places?
American Laundry, we ironed clothes.
For who'd you iron for?
Who ironed for?
For the Haddle Hoodle? Or what?
Haddle Hotel, we call it Haddle Hoodle. Hi, Lisa. Thank you. And at Churn and Ladder, we made ladders. That's what we did there. I don't know. That's just the name of it, Churn and Ladder.
I remember the name.
I don't know. Not that I was
butter
there.
churns? What are churns?
But the building is still standing there. But I don't know. I don't know where it's at. Then when I was 21, I went into VS for 3 months. That was a big change for me because I had never been away from home, and that was at Brooklane Farm in Hagerstown, Maryland, just for 3 months. And
can you tell us about Rhoda? Your sister
sister.
Rhoda.
I had a little sister, just before Marietta was born, in 1939. She was a beautiful little girl, and at 6 months she died. Now, I don't remember too much. I remember some about it, but I don't remember too much. But I know my mother talked about it. It was very hard on my mother. But then a year later, Marietta, my sister, was born, and so she sort of took the place of little Rhoda.
What about other kind of tough things that happened growing up? You said a little bit about your mother. What kind of a person was Eliza? What kind of person was your mother?
Well,
I didn't like her.
maybe you can tell better than I can.
I think she has a lot of her mother's goodness.
She was a very hard-working woman and a very, very good woman. She's a very conscientious woman. Now I look back and I'm glad for everything she taught me. I guess one thing I remember was she always wanted to say things just right, and she didn't want to say it. What's yes is yes and what's no is no. Nay, nay. What's yes is yes and nay is nay. You know, she was very particular about us not stretching the truth or saying it exactly the way it was. Which isn't all bad, you know, but I just remember that of her, that's something she really drilled in us, to say it as it is.
So some of these sayings that you tell us, like a place for everything and everything in its place, does that come from your mother?
Well, I think she was a very, very orderly woman, I think. She tried to keep things in place, but I suppose I learned that maybe somewhere else.
What about never leave off for tomorrow what you can do today? Which is another one of your favorite ones.
Can't really remember just where that all came from. I guess it works. So
it works, so you used it, huh?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So there were no disagreements at home with all those brothers and sisters around?
Well, I'm sure there were. You know, when you get 60, you don't remember everything.
I'll remind you of some. Don't worry.
I'm sure there were disagreements. I remember of some things. I remember in our family, it was boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. And it sort of seemed to work out pretty good that way. Well, not that I'm saying that two of the same sex wouldn't work out, but I had two brothers that did a lot of fighting. And I remember my mother, sometimes when they weren't nice to each other, she'd make them walk out to the barn and back again with their arms around each other. What about that? And I remember that. At least those two had some problems. Do you remember, Mary? Do you remember a bit more than I do, baby? I don't remember much of our life, really.
Did you ever pack lunches for your brothers?
Okay, what he wants to know is, one time my parents were traveling, and they did a lot of, my father's a minister, and they did a lot of traveling to churches and CPS days, going around visiting CPS camps and things. And I remember one time my older brother, just younger than myself, and I don't know what had happened, and I fixed his lunch for school. Remember that? Fixed his lunch for school, and all I put in was an apple butter sandwich and sausage, cold sausage. I don't know why I did that.
Well, you packed a good lunch for everybody else, is
yes,
that right?
Packed him that. Shouldn't have asked that. Shouldn't have asked that. Bill?
What are some more things? I'm sure we could get you out of the growing up years.
My mother was a woman of prayer, very much so. And I remember one time she was combing my hair, braiding my hair, and I was sitting on a chair and I dropped something on the floor, and she asked my younger sister to pick, not Marietta, but my other one, to pick it up. And Esther was always in pretty good spirits, but that time she was refusing to pick this thing up. And my mother said she had to, she was insisting that she did. And Esther just wouldn't do it. And finally my mother left us and went and prayed. And she came back and asked Esther to pick it up, and she picked it up. It's just her persistence, if she asked us to do something, we were expected to do it. And she taught us a lot about prayer and the importance of prayer, I feel.
After going to school then, you'd run into contact, I guess, a lot more with the English, with the world people. Did you ever ask your mother, why they could have electricity and we couldn't? Why, they had radios and we couldn't?
Well, I remember one time, I'm not sure what I asked her about, but she says, well, I don't agree with either and I don't understand it, but we just have to be patient. I remember her answer that time. But I think I sort of wondered sometimes, but still we were we were in sort of in a world, you know, we were in a world too, with people doing the same thing we did, and so it wasn't that big a thing. I wasn't alone. I mean, there was this group.
What about, well, I remember pretty vividly in 1977, I guess, when Elvis Presley died. And I went home and I mentioned in passing that Elvis Presley died. And you seemed to know who the person was. Now, how could an Amish girl growing up in the 60s know who Elvis Presley was, a rock and roll star of the 50s?
I don't know Gail Keys.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I heard good.
What is the story about something to do with horses in a wagon? And was somebody getting thrown from a wagon or horses going?
Well, we had this long lane going back from our farm to the woods, and one time we were on this wagon. I don't know what we were going to do, and we were, all of a sudden the horses ran away, and I wasn't on that wagon. There were some others on the wagon, and I guess somebody fell off, and the horses didn't stop until they got way back to the woods, and the tree stopped them. So it was a very scary experience for everybody.
What about some other bad experience of your life? Like, what about the day your grandpa Hostetler was taken to prison for? I don't know. Maybe you should tell the story.
Does that need to be told?
I think it's a part, yeah, of your life and.
Okay, I had an aunt who was mentally sick, and at the hi Agnes. What? 1947. And at that time, they felt that to put her in an institution was not the thing to do, and so they kept her at home, and she had to be restrained in her bed, but lovingly they took care of her. And the grandchildren stayed there during, like, so grandpas could go to church and they wanted to go away. Well, it was sort of a family thing to sort of help out with Aunt Lucy. And somebody reported her that they felt that that was after Grandma died, and they felt that she was being abused to be restrained in bed. And I guess to this day nobody knows who reported them. And the police came out, and I happened to be there. I used to go there 1 week, and my cousin went the next week after my grandma died, and so we'd take care of Grandpa and her. And so these, I guess they felt that he was very out of place, and it wasn't. They shouldn't be doing it, and so they took him to jail. And during the night, they sentenced him without family being there. We just felt it was just very unjust the way it was all done. But anyways, they sentenced him to jail, and he was in jail for 6 months. State prison, yeah. State prison. Then he was in jail overnight, and they took him to jail. I took him to state prison. Sam Hostetler, my grandfather. And then they took Aunt Lucy to Logansport then, and she was there for quite a few years, and then she got better, and then they released her, and then she died at the Goshen Nursing Home then later on. So I think that was probably one of the hardest things that happened in our lives. You know, we just felt it was all so unjust, but Grandpa was there with his Bible under his arm, and he testified, and I don't think he had such a bad time there in the state park. Well, what I mean is, he knew it wasn't just, but he was just being patient, but that was a hard.
Was your father like that too, in terms of taking everything in stride and accepting things as they happen to you? Because that, the way I hear the story, I guess, from Grandpa Hostetler, of you telling it, is that Grandpa Hostetler, like you said, just took everything in stride and accepted it, and was very, and that seems to be a kind of a Hostetler trait, would you say? Maybe not?
Well, I don't know. My father was quite as much like that. He's a good man, but I'm not sure if he was quite that much.
Okay.
Gaiman?
Yeah.
There's 60 more years to go.
60 years to go. Should we get moving on? Why don't we move to your late teens and then talk a little bit about your dating habits?
Dating habits.
We better hit the 30s by now.
Well, why don't we go quickly through the dating habits? Did you date much, or how did that go about?
Well, I guess I didn't date that many different guys. I dated one guy for 2 years, and I decided then later that we weren't going to get married. Yeah, it was a waste of time. Well, I'm not sure it was all a waste of time, but still, yeah. So we dated for about, then we quit, and then in about 2 months I met Harvey, and so we dated for a year and a half until we got married. Then.
So first time you met him, was there anything special? Did any sparks fly or anything?
Well, the first time, I knew of him before because he was 2 of my sister-in-law's cousins, so I had met him before, so I knew Harvey before.
So when was the first time he caught your eye? Was it at Laban's and Agnes's
when
wedding?
Laban and Agnes got married, that day I saw him, but I was dating this other person, so I wasn't too interested.
Maybe that's the day you decided to drop the other guy.
No, it wasn't. Sometime later, then I met Harvey then in Minnesota in VS, and I went to VS sort of to forget about this other person and go on with my life, and then Harvey and I met there. And
Well, I think Harvey decided to forget about Pollyanna about them.
Well, he says he found me at the wedding, but I was dating somebody else, so he thought it wasn't a chance. Yeah, okay.
So how did that happen in Minnesota? How did you kind of get together? Did you sit down and talk loud? Did you go off and take walks by yourself? What was that?
Like,
Well, you know.
Well, first night, some of the girls sort of up and left us alone.
The first night?
First night that we were alone, yeah. They sort of just sneaked out. We were
And so you were close by during that time?
We worked in the same yard with Northern Light Gospel Mission. I was in one house and he was in the other house. So my bedroom and his bedroom were right. I could see into his bedroom.
So then Harvey left VS before you did, correct?
He left VS to go to college. He had just done high school, and he took a GED test and entered college. Then he was in college for a year, and then we got married.
Is that a little unusual for an Amish boy to be going to college?
Was it, Mom? He wanted. That's something he wanted to do, and he was a good scholar.
So then you guys got married in
December.
The winter of 54, or 52, excuse me.
In between that time, he said, Mom, I want to tell you that Miriam and I are engaged. That's
From Minnesota. We came from Minnesota. We went there one time. I remember that time too. I met my new in-laws.
So then Harvey would come and see you on a horse and buggy, or how'd that work?
Well, no, he lived in Napanee and I lived in Goshen, so he'd always have somebody bring him over.
Okay. So you never had those dating things where the horse knows its way home? And...
No.
Okay. So you're married in 52, and John came along in 54, in April 54. And then Merlin came along in October 55. And somewhere around there, you decided to go to Canada? Or
Yeah.
how did that all come about?
Well, we were asked, our church was building a school for the Indians. And the Indians were sort of neglected up there. And so our church was building a school for the Indians, so we went up there to administrate the building of the school, and we taught at the school then.
So that was at Red Lake.
Red Lake, Ontario.
And you stayed there 5 years?
Almost
5 years. Do you have any special memories of those times? Or?
Yeah, you were born there.
Okay.
Three children. I was pregnant when we went, and so the 3 children were born there. And
Okay.
so I was busy with my little ones.
And then when you came back, you started attending Clinton Frame, was that? do you want to say at all anything about, now that was kind of leaving the Amish church, or how do you want to say briefly, real quickly, something about that?
Okay,
or?
while we were in Canada, our church sort of left the Amish church and went to join, or became Beachy Church, if you know what that means. And so I never really, you know, we were never really in this new church house and so much, you know, a lot. So then we left, and just soon after we came back and started going to Clinton Frame.
And then Dad was going to seminary then?
Finished the seminary then, because he had left seminary when we went to, then he, yeah, when he went to Canada, he left seminary.
And then he became pastor at Maple Grove.
Yeah.
And you, like a good wife with 5 little kids, follow along.
Yeah.
And at Maple Grove for how long?
5 years.
5 years at Maple Grove. How did you manage with 5 kids while the husband is up there preaching to take care of 5 kids, 6.5 years apart?
Well, in the beginning it wasn't easy. After they got a little older, the 3 boys sat up on the front bench, and I had the other 2.
And Dad kept an eye on them from the pulpit?
Probably. They were supposed to behave.
You were supposed to be. So then how did it come about that you guys started thinking about going abroad, being missionaries and that kind of stuff?
Well, Harvey had the calling before we were married already. But then when we got married and had 5 children, he thought probably there'd be no possibility of getting to go. So one day, without telling me, he went to the mission board and just sort of investigated a little bit, see what the possibilities would be. And here they had some openings that we could leave soon. And so he came home and told me about it. And of course it was a big surprise for me, but he was very patient, and we just discussed it with the family and talked about it, a lot until we all decided to be okay to go.
Was there any big questions or doubts, or how did the kids take it? What did they?
Oh, it was an adventure for the kids.
Okay.
For me, I was afraid of water, so I wasn't sure how I was going to get there. And I was afraid of height, too. And so I just wasn't sure, how it would work out for me. But I remember one time in devotions we were reading about Elijah feeding the ravens, and it just clicked. All of a sudden it clicked. If God could take care of the ravens, he could take care of Elijah, he could take care of me. And then everything was fine, and I was ready to go.
So you got to Brazil in beginning of 1967. Left a snowstorm in South Bend. Got a bang out of that one.
And I think we learned faster than if we would have been in an English community, really. But that first year, and the people are so warm and friendly, and it was just, it wasn't hard to love the people, and it was good.
So.
It was busy time.
Busy time?
Learning the new customs of, like, children wore uniforms to school and they had their way of covering books. There was just a lot of little things that I did not know, how to do it or what to do. And so we had good colleagues there that were there before, and they taught us a lot.
And what was Harvey's job, or what?
Well, at first we were there just helping this new church that had just started, 3-4 years before that. And then the pastor left the church, so overnight he became pastor of the church and administrator of the religious bookstore that was in town.
Which he hadn't done either before.
No,
right?
and that was a big adjustment, and it wasn't that easy to start with.
And so the first furlough then was in 1970 when you came back for over the winter time. Any big happenings there? Or?
Well, it was nice coming back, and Grandma and Grandpa opened up there. They have a furnished basement, so we lived in the basement 2 times, didn't we? Yeah, we lived in the basement, and it was nice. Those 3 months passed by real fast, but yeah, coming back to snow was different again. It was so cold. We were used to having where it was warm, being where it was warm.
And then back to Brazil for 5 more years, right? Before the next furlough in 76 or 75, end of 75. And then when life kind of took a different twist, I guess,
Yeah.
76, 77. Do you want to just start from there? And
We went back in March of 76.
77, or
76. We came back, yeah.
Yeah.
March of 76 we went back there, and then in August is when Harvey first wasn't feeling well, and with dizziness and blurred vision, and they didn't diagnose what was wrong with him until February of 77, and they located a brain tumor in the stem of his brain. Then we came back in March 16th of 77. We were in the hospital. The doctors in the town where we lived couldn't diagnose it all, so they sent us to specialists in the state of Sao Paulo. So we went down there, and the specialist right there discovered, right away what it was and operated soon. And so we were in the hospital for 3 weeks there, and he never got back to go home to the people, and it was pretty hard on him but a lot of people had come down to visit us there. It was about a 4.5-hour trip by bus. So from there, then we came to the States.
And he did have a surgery then
He had his surgery in Sao Paulo.
but nothing could be done there.
No.
And so what was the decision to come back to the States, or how did that come about? Or?
Well, the mission board left that up to us. They said, people die in the States too, and if we want to stay in Brazil, we can stay, or if we want to come back. But we had some colleagues there that really felt strongly that we should come. And so I started on the papers. It took several weeks to get all the papers in order to get to leave the country. And so Harvey and I were planning on coming, and then about 3 days before we left, somebody got the idea that Galen should come too. He was 16 then, just ready to start school, a new school year, and so he came with us too.
And we were here in the States for a couple weeks before Dad's condition took a turn for the
10
worse.
days.
10 days.
10 days, yeah.
And then
He had a stroke then.
and Harvey was bedridden for the next year and a half. First of all in Chicago, and then transferred to Elkhart and then to Goshen, where you basically took care of him during that time, right? Do you have any memories or any thoughts about those times? Remember those days of around-the-clock feedings every 4 hours, getting up in the middle of the night?
Well, it was scary when the doctors told us that we could do everything at home that they were doing at the hospital. That was in Elkhart. But they taught us how to do things. He had tube feeding, and he had a catheter and a trach, and it's just a lot of that stuff that seemed difficult to start with, but then they taught us how to do everything. And then we had a nurse coming in from home health care that helped us, and then an aide coming once a week too. And we lived in Elkhart at the time, and Fellowship of Hope had a few nurses that, Mary Miller's sister was a good one to come and help us out when the feeding wouldn't go down or had catheter problems or something, and they'd come and help us there then. But yeah, like Galen said, we fed him through the stomach for every 6 hours. And so since the children had to go to work the next day, I would do it every other night. And if it wouldn't have been for the children, I could have never done it. Every other night, one of them slept in the Davenport and got up at 2 o'clock to feed him because we wanted to reposition him too. So for over a year, we did that then.
And then Harvey finally passed away in June?
June 17th, 1978.
And
It was on Father's Day.
Yeah, on Father's Day, that's right. Yeah, it was on Father's Day.
And taking care of Harvey kind of got you, I guess, in the mindset to do something at Greencroft, or how did it all come about?
Well, yeah, I had worked as a nurse aide before I was married too. I didn't mention that before, about a year and a half. So I really enjoyed it. And yeah, that's right. But to start with, then I worked at Wheel and Designs for 2 years, since it was close to home and the children were working there. But then I went to Greencroft, yeah, after 2 years.
So you've been at Greencroft now for
8 years.
8 years. Just bringing you up to date to 1989, at 60 years old.
With a lot of friends.
Does anybody of the friends want to make any comments or whatever? Not necessarily of something that happened, maybe a word of advice or appreciation or whatever.
I come out there different times to help her a little bit with, we put up strawberries that very last day before, and he died in the evening. But now I think since I should have helped him more.
I always appreciated him at Maple Grove. I couldn't see why they'd want to leave Maple Grove and go someplace else. Then they did.
That's Lena Bontrager. I don't know if your children know her or not.
Maybe they knew some of her boys. Yeah, of course they did. Lloyd? Oh, they were.
They're a little
I was
older.
too
They
young.
were those.
John,
They
remember.
know.
John and Merle remember her.
The first time I met Miriam was when I was right after we moved to Indiana, and I was in the Bible class downtown at the, and you were in this class when you were trying to make this decision about going to Brazil. And that's the. We were in the same group, and I didn't know who this lady was. And then, yeah, I've often thought about that. That you were struggling with making this decision to go to Brazil.
You said you left Maple Grove in '67.
February of '67.
The family since the time you came back, and we were in small group together, and Harvey was in bed, and so we really learned to appreciate her a lot. And the family, our families would get together and have fun in the backyard, and I thought those young men were pretty nice, and I kind of wondered which one's going to come for one of our girls. Little did I think it would be Millard coming for Sheila, you know. That wasn't the way I planned, but...
So the twin did, Gail and Sheila are
No,
twins.
the twins, yeah, she got me. So I just appreciate Miriam and kind of envy her energy. Oh, I just envy her energy. I'm sorry, you shouldn't envy. I just really appreciate her, and I'm happy she's the grandmother of our grandchildren. I was quilting with Joyce last winter. Yeah, I think it was last winter. And she said, she was quilting too. And she said, you know, my grandma Graber, she really has taught me a lot about sewing. So many more happy years.
Ready to help somebody and to never too busy in spite of the full load she carries in her work at Greenhall. And she mentioned her family and taking care of Harvey. I remember going over sometimes on Sunday morning and staying so they could all go to church, but I was always impressed with the way that the sons related to their father and were willing to help take care of him.
Well, I'm impressed too with my children, the way they've stuck with me during Harvey's sickness and to this day. I just can't be thankful enough. It's just been so good.
I appreciated Miriam and her cheerfulness and optimism. There have been so many times when I should have been complaining. She had things or this or this. I can't remember Miriam ever complaining. And I just think that was special.
Thank you. I can though.
And I too can remember going over on a Sunday morning.
Yeah,
Those times.
you did.
But then we could always leave when we come back. And I would think how hard it would be to stay and be there and be responsible.
And mother-in-law stories do not fit mine. And she's great. She gives wonderful advice and help, but not in a bad or uninvited way. And I've learned a lot from her and love her very much.
Thank you, Sheila. Love you too.
Yeah,
Boy, she decided to have one girl.
Knew him better than I did Miriam back in those days. I think my distinct impression of him came when he graduated from Ocean College. He was first in his class. He was a real academic. person, but he was very humble, very unassuming, very personable, just a very fine person. And so I followed him with a great deal of interest in the years that followed, including the time when he was ill at home. And I think one of the things that I remember about that time was going to see him, and he was unable to respond verbally, but I would see the tear trickle down his cheek as he talked, as I talked to him. I shall never forget that sense of appreciation that he was expressing in that way.
A lot younger than her. I mean, there's no, the doors and windows are all open and the dirt roads, you know, and the truck goes past. Well, you know, how can you know, it's just a different world. That's all.
You're playing dinner on. I kept looking at Elmer and I got up.
I see your sister a lot, Flossie. I see your sister a couple times a week. She's the one at Green Cross.
Expensive. Gold certificates, about $200,000.
That'll buy 6 months.
I won't be here that long.
That brings us to the most important rule, the sanction. I know you're here to get Elliot, or he you. If either of you violate the sanction by killing inside this retreat, you will be instantly terminated. 200 acres encircled by state-of-the-art security. There's horseback riding, fishing, swimming, skiing, anything that you want, all safe within our retreat. Security patrols constantly, and they're hand-picked from all of the intelligence services.
I'm impressed.
You will be if you cross them. The clientele is composed of refugees from intelligence operations everywhere. There is more behind-the-scenes history here than any other spot in the world. Look. See the guy with the beard over there? He's Egyptian. Big shot in Sadat's counterintelligence. Fled here when Sadat was assassinated. His chess opponent